Welcome to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast, where we explore some of the truly difficult questions and challenges that parents and their families face every day. Whether it's the sometimes painful process of parenting teens and young adults, navigating relationships with your partner and children, or you discovering your purpose in relationship with yourself, we will bring heartfelt and vulnerable conversations to the table to support and empower you. Our mission is to help you create a lifestyle full of love, passion, adventure, and influence. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast with Erin and Chris. So amazing to be back with all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in for what we believe is going to be, I think, a pretty special edition. As always, I'm with the amazing and beautiful and talented Erin Vertis. Hey, sweetheart.
Hey, babe, how's it going today?
I'm kind of excited to talk about this topic. You know, the more that we get geared up for this, the more that I realize, and I know that you feel this way too, this is kind of what the thing that we're going to talk about today is honestly, I think it's the foundation of our belief system and of our coaching.
Yeah, I agree. And, Chris and I pick these topics. They come from, when we go on our walks to the forest or we're walking our dog Koa, when we're at the gym, like we just, we're always talking about business. And the cool thing about doing what you love is, yes, we have to put it aside sometimes on date nights, things like that. I have a rule, no talking about business and finances. But we love what we do, and it all is so integrated with our kids and our family and us as a couple. So we come up with these great topics, and they're usually the topic of the week. So there'll be things we do in our Instagram stories and things we're talking about with our kids. So by the time we get to you guys, we've talked a lot about these things, and we're so pumped and excited because it's been the topic of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's kind of like putting together a puzzle sometimes. There's these themes that show up with these ideas and these passions and these things that we talk about all the time. And one of those themes we're going to talk about today because we feel like it can make the absolute biggest difference in your life, in your parenting with you, and of course, your families, your beautiful children, which is why we're all here today. We're here to be amazing parents. We're here to, word Erin and I talked about right before we jumped on, is we want to be a positive influence for our children, for our family, for everybody that's around us. Just because, man, that's such a good feeling knowing that you are making a difference. You are making an impact. You are leaving a legacy. And so today we're going to go deep into that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that so that by the time this conversation is wrapped up today, once again, maybe it's not the end of the conversation. I think this conversation will continue, but we're all going to start to be a little bit more intentional about how we show up for our children as we move forward.
And I just want to add to that, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this in a little bit here, but I just want to really always remind all of you parents out there that being intentional and creating a positive environment is not about perfection. I think sometimes when we hear that, we think, oh, well, probably don't do that very well because there's a lot of chaos going on, or I yell sometimes, or, we're late all the time. And it's not about perfection. It's about being intentional to start making some positive shifts in how you show up in your life, which is exactly what we're going to dive into here in a second. And it's about progress, making little bits of progress every day. So don't ever mistake when Chris and I talk about having a positive, healthy, influential environment for I have to do things perfectly. No. Always want to make sure I remind all of you of that.
No, I'm definitely not perfect. I think Erin she would probably argue she comes pretty close.
Oh, please, far from it. I'm probably the hardest on myself.
That's definitely true. However, a good example of this, just to kind of prime the pump a little bit and get us thinking about this a little bit more personally, is Erin and I were very intentional a couple of days ago. I'll back up a second, actually, because one of Erin and mine favorite rituals is going to the gym, exercising, really working on ourselves. And so the gym is one of those places. It's not the only place, but it's a pretty special place where, honestly, we spend quite a bit of time. We're there almost every single day. It's how we start our day. It really prepares us to have a great day and serves a lot of other important functions too. But it was a first for my son William, which was pretty special because it was his first visit to the gym. I know Skylar, your daughter, my stepdaughter, he had been there a couple of times before, but regardless, I thought it was a pretty special experience.
Yeah, we had such a gorgeous week here in
Yeah, we
Michigan.
did.
It's been the weather. Some would say even a little too hot by late in the day, but this like 70s, 80-degree, like fall kind of like weather. So we went and played pickleball outside first before we headed into the gym. And it was just really fun to get them there. And we played outside, and Chris took William inside and was helping him lift some weights and getting him used to that environment. But, it was just, and we do these things with our kids. And then in hindsight, we always see the lesson in it, or how can we share it with you
Hmm.
guys? And we just recognize the importance of, rather than you need to get outside and go for a walk. You should get outside and go for a bike ride. You need to be doing this rather than us like lecturing them and reminding them, which we do, by the
It
way, especially
happens.
over the summer. We were constantly on William and Skylar to get outside more. But take them, right?
Yeah.
We decided let's just show them where we go. Let's take them into our environment and show them what we do every day and how good it can make you feel. And that's really what we're talking about today is, back to that word influence. We have so much more influence over our kids than we recognize. Rather than controlling out of fear or lecturing them or giving so much advice, you can model these things, right? By showing them how you live your life. And when you're intentional about modeling positive and healthy aspects of your life, it's so much more powerful for them to watch you from afar rather than you lecturing them about how to do it for themselves. And Chris and I always say it's the long game in parenting. We want these results for our kids like yesterday. And so a lot of times it's out of fear. It's usually always out of fear that we lecture and we try to control and we give advice and tell them what we think they should do. But when you can let go of that fear a little bit and recognize, if I'm just patient and I start making some shifts in my life and I'm showing up as this better version of myself, they're going to witness that every single day and it's going to have so much more of an impact. Yes, it takes a little bit longer for all of that to catch on, but I promise you it's a more empowering way to parent.
It really is. And I think it makes everybody feel good, us included. I can go back to the gym experience, right? As we were very intentional about creating that moment or that hour or hour and a half of time. They're going to be a little bit resistant, to be very honest. I know Skylar was resistant. William's a little bit more open-minded sometimes, but so he wasn't necessarily.
He's always way more
Yeah, okay, so he was
open-minded.
way more open-minded, but regardless, as parents, like we recognize that, in order for this connection to really occur, for them to really start to notice and observe some of these really important things about what are mom and dad really up to? What do they do behind the scenes? How do they respond to situations? What are they doing to take care of themselves? All of these really important questions, which make no mistake, kids are curious about. Kids are watching and observing. And so when you get them into an opportunity or a moment like this where they're not on their devices, they're not on their phones, they're not with their friends, something pretty incredible happens. Is all of a sudden, I'll just kind of walk you through. Erin mentioned that, William walked into the gym for the very first time. I could just tell that he was interested. I could just tell like there was a certain level of curiosity, maybe even a hint of excitement. And I'll tell you what, he walked right into this big gym, which for some people would be a little bit overwhelming because there's some people lifting some pretty serious weights in there who have been doing it for a long time. William's 13 years old. He's never done this before. And I got him to lay down on a bench, a weight bench. He picked up a bar and he started doing the bench press. His first time ever. And his arms were shaking, lifting that 45 pounds up and down. But he did 3 sets of 10 because that's what I said I did. And he listened and he wanted to do that too. And the look of pride on his face after that was completed, I'll never forget. And as we were walking out, and I think Erin, you might have heard this too, like he gave me feedback that, Dad, I want to come back to the gym again. That was not prompted by
Yeah.
me. That was not anything that I said we were going to do or he had to do. He came to his own conclusion based on that experience. Something inside of him it lit up a little bit, and he recognized, yeah, you know what? I like this. It does make me feel different. It does make me feel good. I like to push myself. That's something I never recognized about myself before. And so just getting our kids into new environments, some of our environments at first, that may not necessarily be their thing. However, it may help them find their thing.
And I'll say Chris is really much better at this than I am. I am definitely the mom in the background that's trying to get my kids, let's do this, you got to try this, you got to do this. And Chris has always has this way about him. He's so much more patient, more calm, just doing his thing, trusting in the process more. And I do think that is why William is more open to, sure, I'll try it, and he sees what his dad's doing every day. And Chris tells him about his workouts every time we see him. He's like, tells William what he did at the gym that day. And so just want to honor you for
Thank
that,
you
honey.
so
You're really,
much.
really good
You're
about
pretty
that. And I
amazing with
want to
that
say
too. Can I
too,
just add one thing? Because I don't think it's a matter of like ever telling them what to do. I know that that's our inclination is you should do this, you should do that because you're trying to you know what's best for them or at least we think we do. I think it's more about, and this is something that I've done a much better job with William, my youngest, compared to my oldest, just because parenting is a journey and we evolve and we learn and we grow along the way. And so, one of the big things that I believe in and I talk about incessantly is just curiosity. So when I'm talking to William, it's about just encouraging him to be curious, to try new things, to get out of his comfort zone. I don't tell him what to do, how to do it. I want for him to figure a lot of that out on his own. But I do open the door to taking some of those first steps. And I'm proud of him
yeah.
because he's taken that and he's ran with it. And he joined a soccer team, which he had never played a sport before. And I think he just wanted to do something because he recognized that, yeah, like Dad said, I've got to get out and have new experiences. I've got to get out of my comfort zone and play a sport I've never played before. I've got to be around some people that I don't normally spend time with. Like I'm proud of myself as a parent because I see some of those teachings coming through in some of his actions. And I'm sure you do too, babe.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And I wanted to give William some more props. He got in the cold plunge.
Oh my God, I completely forgot
He
about
got in the
that.
cold plunge. Yeah, I was like, so he did not. So, my daughter Skylar, she's just like, I
She's
got
more
this. And
bold.
she'll just jump into anything. She's just got that
Yeah.
personality. And William's a lot more hesitant, but Chris and I went in because we go in almost every time we go to the gym. And we pushed him a little. I said, William, just go. Don't think.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Get in. Just get in up to your neck. And he got on, and Chris encouraged him to go all the way down up to his neck. And he stayed in for about 10 seconds. We were so proud of
Well,
him.
and it was absolutely incredible. Most
Yeah,
importantly, he was just so freaking proud of himself.
he was
You would
so
have
proud of
thought
himself.
that
And I
he had
want to
just won the lottery.
I
And
know. It's so true. And I just want to say for those parents out there, I know sometimes girls especially can be extra hard to get them to do some of these things, boys
yeah.
too, but I find my son is a lot more agreeable and willing to try to like come with places with us and do things. He's 18. But for those of you listening that are like, oh, that must be nice. I can't get my daughter or my kid to like do stuff like that with me. Skylar was not on board, by the way.
Yeah.
She had a tummy ache a little bit that day. Had been just, it was a lazy day. She was kind of on her phone, and that was a non-negotiable. I made her get up and put her phone away and come with us. So sometimes, it isn't all roses where we sometimes sound like our kids just go do all this stuff with us. I made her come. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind. Like sometimes there's just a non-negotiable as well. So, about modeling better things for our kids, our kids can really be a mirror for us to become this better version of ourselves. We look at our kids and we want so much more for them. A lot of times in parenting, what happens is we get so caught up in what we want for them to be healthier, for them to have more confidence, to follow their passions and find their purpose, that we lose sight of what ours is. And I promise you, the best way to help them find all of that is for them to watch you finding all of that for yourself. And so, Chris, let's dive into some of the just real practical parts of life where parents can start modeling some of this for their
Yeah,
kids.
absolutely. And so, right, first and foremost, I think it's important for us to think about that best version of ourselves. Okay, because we're not perfect, and that's not the name of the game. But the name of the game that Aaron and I are very, very passionate about, and what we want for you and for us, is for us to understand that for us to show up better for our kids, for us to truly help our kids in the deeper, more meaningful ways, ironically, instead of focusing on them, you actually turn the focus on yourself. So, as Aaron said, and we're going to get into it now, like if you take really good care of yourself, if you get yourself feeling good, you have all the right habits, you have the right mindset, you're out there pursuing your goals, your dreams, your passions, you communicate in a certain way, you live your life a certain way. Guess what? That's that influence that we're talking about. And so I believe, and Aaron, I think you believe in this too, you're even better at this than I am, and that's self care. Like from the things that you do when you first wake up in the morning, that morning routine. For us, that's going to the gym, that's meditating, that's journaling, that's taking our dog for a walk, getting outside in nature. That's how we start our day. And the good news is every time that we do that, we're working on ourselves. We're building ourselves up so that we can show up stronger and better in all of the different areas of our life. And the bonus to that is guess what? The kids are paying attention. They're watching, they're
Mm-hmm.
listening, they're learning. So eventually they're going to take those reins and they're going to come up with their own morning routine in using us as inspiration. We've seen this time and time and time again with a lot of the parents and young adults that we coach every day is all of a sudden you
Mm-hmm.
start to see these kids like taking control of their own lives as a result of us taking control of our lives. And so that's something. So first and foremost is you want to be doing things to take really good care of yourselves, to get yourself feeling good, to help yourself become more motivated, more confident, really believing in yourself so that once again, you can show up for your kids in a certain way to create that influence.
Yeah, and I just want to speak especially to like moms out there. It took me a long time to learned that it was so much more important for my kids to see me putting myself first than to let all of my life go to the wayside so I could make sure I was there for them all the time, hands on deck. I was really a stay at home mom with my kids when they were younger, and that's just how life was with them. So it was a transition
Mhm.
for me to say, no, I need to take care of myself. And so, the on Sunday mornings are mornings where spend a lot of time on my morning routine. I journal and I visualize and I read and I just spend a lot. My meditations are longer. And my son got up extra early that day, which is very rare.
Yeah.
But I heard a door click shut. I had headphones in and he had gotten up and got in the shower. And, he saw me. I was in my room meditating, I was journaling, and I almost threw everything to the side to run downstairs and make him some breakfast because that's the mom in me. I wanted to be there for him. But I said, no, this is so much better for him to see me taking care of myself. And so when he got out of the shower, I said, are you hungry? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, there's stuff downstairs. You can make yourself some
Mhm.
breakfast. But that sounds trivial, but for especially I think for moms, that's hard sometimes to put yourself first. And I've said this before on the weekdays, my daughter gets up extra early and she comes downstairs and sees me in my meditation
Mhm.
every morning. And so that's just me modeling what is my best form of self-care. Chris is more like going to the gym, and that's what
Yeah.
he's modeling for William all the time. So take some time as we're going through these, and we have about 3 or 4 more to
Yeah.
go. Start thinking about, as we're talking, what is your best version of self-care? I'm sure you already have something in place that you can really hone
Mhm.
in on, and I want you to honor yourself for that and think of more ways that you can share that with your child, more
Hmm.
ways that you can let them walk in on you doing it,
Yeah.
right? So they can actually see you in action. And if you don't, start thinking about what that could look like for you.
Yeah, babe. And I want you to talk about the next strategy as well. But first, I just want to kind of add on one little tip as we're talking about some of these different categories of our life to start modeling for our children. And that is once again, we're not going to tell our kids or force our kids to do a morning ritual, go to the gym, exercise, journal, meditate, go for a walk. Oh, maybe sometimes. However, what you want to do, and I've been doing this, Aaron, I know you do this, is we share our lives with our kids. Okay, we share our
Hmm.
behind the scenes. I talk with my kids all the time about my morning routine. I talk because it's just something we're so passionate about. We know the difference that it can make in your life. Now it's up to them to take that and run with it. But see, so that's the next step. Is out of curiosity, I ask William, like, what would your morning routine be like? Right? What's something you would like to do in the morning? And it gets him thinking about how he wants to start his day. And the really cool thing
Hmm.
is he might end up taking one of your suggestions. He might end up saying, "Well,
Yeah.
Dad, I really want to go to the gym too. I really want to exercise. I really want to go for a walk." Because you've been modeling it over and over and over again, that he recognizes that, yeah, that's something that I want to do too. But it's his choice, it's his idea. And that's how you shift this narrative and shift the perspective. And last thing before we get into the next strategy is just to understand that this is a bit of a long game. And that's why, as parents, we have to be a little bit patient with this process. Are we going to see immediate results? I mean, maybe. You might hit the jackpot, have the perfect kid who just lights up when you give them a suggestion and he takes it and runs with it, but probably not.
Yeah.
However, over the weeks and the months, oh man, they start to come to life. They start to come up with their own ideas. They start to embody some of these different behaviors. And that makes us feel really, really good.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that real quick. Yeah, then we'll dive into the second part is, I think sometimes as parents, we get a little, as our kids become teenagers and young adults, it can be a little intimidating
Yeah.
sometimes. They roll their eyes at you. They act like they have no interest in anything you have to say. When we're telling our kids about the podcast we recorded today or what we're up that we did an Instagram reel or whatever, they usually laugh at us and say we don't know what we're doing on social media. But they also just often act really uninterested or they move on to their
Yeah.
thing right away without even commenting. That's okay. Don't let that
No.
derail you. Share anyways. Let them know how work was today, what's going on in a relationship with a coworker. Like share with them how you bounce back, your resilience, what you're up to, how you're taking care of yourself, even if it seems like they're not
Yeah.
listening. So, okay, the second part here is modeling emotional regulation. And this is, I think Chris wanted me to do this one because this is a tough one for me.
No comment.
So, really is modeling how we want our kids to handle situations, right? Of course, we want to see our kids look people in the eye, shake someone's hand, be able to handle rejection, be able to handle being humiliated or embarrassed, right? All of those things that we want our kids to have the resilience, to have the confidence to handle the emotions that come up for them. It starts with us. It starts with you as a parent. And I really, really want to highlight here that I get more than just about anyone, I think, what it's like to not be regulated
Mhm.
sometimes and then beat yourself up for that. And so that's where I was saying at the beginning of this episode is I want you to be, as you're hearing these things, don't beat yourself up just because sometimes you're not emotionally
Uh-huh.
regulated or you're not modeling self-care. You can always shift and change. That's the beautiful thing about the human experience is we can change. We can
Oh,
wake up
yeah.
tomorrow and decide to make a shift for ourselves. So, modeling how you interact with people in stores, modeling how you interact with your partner, modeling how you handle rejection or when you get embarrassed or whatever it is, anything that triggers those high
Mhm.
emotions or how we have to communicate with other people, when you can model taking a breath, taking a step outside and taking a walk so you calm down, even when your kids are triggering
Hmm.
you. Sometimes with Skylar, especially, I just say, I need a break. I can't talk about this right now. And I'll go in my room and shut the door. And she knows I'm in there doing some box breathing and calming
Yeah.
down. And then I'll come back to her and have a conversation. Now, that's not all the time. She pushes my buttons. I react to her
Hmm.
often. We scream at each other a little bit. But she has learned too what it means. She'll shut her door and say, I need a break. I need to take a breath. And so that's part of it. And then, as far as like showing them resilience, there are times where I get frustrated or impatient. And an example would be like being at a store with her. And maybe I'm rude to somebody in the store because I'm in a rush and I'm flustered and I have to get here and I have to get there. And she has said to me before, God, Mom, that was so rude.
Hmm.
And I get defensive at first. And I'm like, well, Skylar, I was in a hurry. Sorry, they were taking too long. And then I always have learned now to almost always, I'll go back to her that evening or at bedtime when we have some great talks, and I'll say, listen, I messed up today in the store. I was flustered. I was rushing. That's true, but I could have taken a breath and been a little kinder to that girl in the store today. And she'll always say, that's okay, Mom. But that's another way to model emotional resilience, is to own your
Hmm.
stuff. It's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay if you lash out here and there. We're human. But how do you bounce back from that? How do you own your actions, and how do you have a conversation with your child afterwards? Whether it's a fight you have with your husband or wife or partner, whether it's an argument you have with them, and that you can go back later and claim it and have that conversation with them. It makes all the difference. And what you're modeling then is that they can take that through the rest of their life in any interaction or relationship and take responsibility.
And I think that out of all of these different categories or all these different strategies, this might be the most important, because most parents and most young adults, we're challenged with our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions. We get triggered a lot, often. We get distracted. We're on our phones, and that puts us into kind of a funky or weird, unsettling emotional state. And so that's why, as parents, if we can become more intentional about modeling some of the behavior of how to unhook from some of those negative distractions or negative thoughts or negative feelings, how to calm ourselves down in certain situations, which is something that I talk a lot about. Because when you're able to become more intentional about calming yourself down, taking really good care of yourself when you check in with yourself and you notice yourself getting stressed or overwhelmed or not feeling the way that you need to feel. All of my kids, all of our kids, all of the kids that we coach and the parents that we talk to, they know that Erin and I, we take a lot of walks. And we're not just taking walks because we like the exercise. We're actually taking walks because it's one of our rituals that we do to regroup, to ground ourselves, and to get ourselves reset. So when we walk back in the door from that walk, we're ready to go. We're ready to take
Yeah.
on whatever the next thing is. We don't allow for ourselves to stay in that unsettling state. And so, once again, your kids, our kids, they're picking up on all these behaviors, all these ways that you're handling different situations, and they're going to learn from it in the most powerful way possible. And this section it's one of our favorites because it involves modeling purpose. And you all know myself and Erin now. You know that our brand and our philosophy is all about us finding our purpose as individuals, as parents, as families. That is the cornerstone of our beliefs, because we believe that when you're intentional about connecting with your purpose, it brings out the best in all of us. It inspires all those people around you. It has a tremendous impact on your kids. But there's an important ingredient that we want to make sure that we mention. And this goes back to what we've already been talking about. And that is, you have to share your dreams. You have to share your purpose and talk about these most important parts of yourselves and of your family with your children. And you have to do it on a consistent basis, because this is what's going to start to help them open up their worlds and start to get them thinking about what are their passions and what's their purpose and why are they here. This is something that I'm going to use, this consistency word, and that's a word that we haven't used yet today, but it's really important, is that you're not just doing this one time. If you're going to be talking about modeling self-care, if you're going to be modeling emotional regulation and how to navigate your thoughts and feelings, if you're going to be, really starting to share your passions and your purpose with your family and with your children and with your partner, then guess what? You have to do it all the time. Because the more times that you share it, the more that it starts to create that really positive influence, that positive impact that we want, that's going to light something up in all those people around you. Okay. And that's the effect that we're looking for, is for us to be a catalyst for our children, to maybe just light the candle, light that light just enough so that they begin their journey towards finding their passions and purpose.
And when you are maybe thinking right now, well, I'm not positive what my purpose is, right? I'm not positive what kind of self-care I really want to start incorporating into my days and my
Yeah.
weeks and months of my life. The last part of this for today is, because Chris and I could go on and on about this in so many different areas, but curiosity is such an important part of finding your purpose, right? So starting to try new things, reading new books, listening to new podcasts, picking up new hobbies, trying new classes, just getting out there and being curious and talking to your kids about that. Hey, I'm reading this new book. Hey, I picked up a journal. I'm going to start journaling, right? I'm going to start trying a new yoga class. I'm going to take a cooking class. Like, the list is endless, but you getting out there and being curious and then sharing that curiosity with your kids and your partner and the people around you, it's such a beautiful influence that you can have for all the people in your life, but particularly your kids. And you're learning all these new things, and you're getting closer to being in touch with what your purpose is. And if you already have that idea of what your purpose is and you're out there living it, that's awesome. Just keep modeling that and keep sharing that with your kids. We can't express that enough, because the truth is, it's really a mindset, right? That you can start shifting into if you don't have this mindset already. And that is that it's rarely your kid. It's typically always you as a parent that can make shifts and do something different and new to help influence a shift in your child. And I know sometimes that's a hard thing to swallow for a lot of parents. We're tired some days. It's hard to just constantly feel like it's all on us, and it's not all on you. It's just that if you really want to have that influence in your child's life and you want them to start making some shifts, you can start making them first.
Yeah, it doesn't feel so good when you have your fists clenched all the time, every day, all day around our kids or about our kids. It doesn't make us feel good, and it definitely doesn't make them feel good. But you know what does feel good? A couple of things. One is unclenching, okay, letting go, just just breathing and saying, okay, you know what? Let me refocus my attention on something that I can control. And that's my behaviors, my action, my mindset, my purpose, the things that are going to bring out the absolute best in me so that I'm always learning and I'm always growing. And that light inside me is lit up so that I become that positive influence for all the people around me. Once again, I can't fix my kid. I can't fix my teen. I can't fix my young adult. I can't force them to go out and do things that I want for them, but I can definitely show them the way. And so once again, we hear that sometimes, show them the way, show them the way, show them the way. That sounds really good. But what we talked about today is about the actual process of doing that. The actual
Yeah.
process of waking up each morning more intentional about saying, you know what, this is where I'm going to put my focus. This is where I'm going to put my attention, right? And this is how I'm going to make the biggest impact on my child's life. That's what Erin and I care about the most.
All right, babe. Well, this was an amazing topic, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and get out there and model some amazing things for your kids this week. Be a great influence, be kind to yourself, have grace with yourself. Start small. If this is a new concept for you, small progress each week. That's all that matters. We'll see you
You
guys
guys
next
go get
time.
them. All right, take care. Bye
Take
bye.
care. We are so thankful for you and your beautiful family, and hope you found something inside today's episode that brought you hope, inspiration, and most importantly, a path forward. If you're interested in evolving your relationship, giving your kids the most important gift of personal growth and development, or are a mom looking to reconnect with your confidence and become empowered in all areas of your life, then schedule a discovery call with us today. Our mission is to help as many families as possible find their purpose, and that starts with you. See you in the next episode, my friends.